And we're live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Martial Energetics web show. I am Andrew, and this is Dane. How you doing, Dane?
I'm doing great. How are you doing this evening, Andrew?
It's been a long day working at home today. So tonight we're going to be talking about our Dirty Tricks series, and tonight is biting. So how could we possibly think of biting in a self-defense situation, and what kind of dangers does it present? Dane, why don't you take us away?
Yeah, biting in a self-defense context is something that a lot of people misunderstand it. They think about it the wrong way. Rule number one: don't bite. It's not safe for you. And to sum it up in 3 words: blood-borne pathogens. It's not recommended that you bite somebody uh, in a self-defense situation. It's just not safe. Um, the uh, of course, if your life is on the line, if the only thing you can do to save yourself is bite somebody, then that's what you have to do. If that's the case, if you bite something, bite it off, because nothing less than that will do. If it's you're doing whatever you have to do to save your life, um, that's the case, and you can sort out whatever health implications come up later after you have survived the situation. But overall, there's pretty much always something better you can do, something more effective you can do in terms of causing injury to the human body, which is what's necessary to survive a situation like that. So don't think of biting as a tactic. Think of it as a hazard, something that you want to avoid having happen to you. That's the real relevance of it. And when this is mentioned in the martial arts communities, people have some pretty typical responses, kind of along the lines of, "Oh, well, a trained fighter would never do that, and that wouldn't be effective." Um, that's kind of the point. It's the thing to understand is, no, it's not something a trained fighter would do. It's something that a desperate person would do. Uh,
Exactly. That's very true.
and so, I mean, think of it, if you were going to be handling a rabid wild animal, you would
Mhm.
take precautions against that sort of thing. Um, and this was actually a comment that I saw in a forum about this. It said, actually, biting just makes a real fighter more upset. If you do that in a street beef or on the mat, you better take off a nose or a chunk of lip, or you'll only enrage your opponent. Which is not wrong. It reinforces what I just said about, if you're going to bite something, bite it off. Yes, but in a ring or in a street beef situation, these are not life or death, like self defense type situations. Um, and at the same time, saying, but if you are training any kind of martial arts, if you want it to be effective for self-defense, then you need to take into account the possibility, because, like, if you even if you're training for combat sports, or a sporting competition, um, it might not happen in the ring, but if you want your training to be effective in a situation where it might happen, then you have to take account of that possibility. And being enraged is not going to defend you. Like, you might become really enraged when it happens, but that's not a defense against it happening. It's better to avoid the situation altogether, and that means that you have to take if you have to take into account the possibility in your training, and that will change somewhat how you train. If you're doing wrestling or grappling type things, then you have to be aware anytime you're putting your hands on your opponent's head or near their mouth, or you're bringing their head close to your body. Then you have to account for that, and you have to actually do. If you want to learn to defend against something, then you have to have it done to you, which means that you have to do it in training. If you just pretend like it's off the table, then you'll train differently than if you are accounting for the fact that it's a possibility.
No, very true. One of the things we tend to advise against is grappling in a self-defense situation. Because when we talk about the worst case scenario, we always think, almost toe to toe with a person. So very close, very little time to react. There's very likely a weapon involved and very likely maybe a second or third person in the wings that you don't see. So as soon as you get into a grappling situation with someone, well, you got tons of different threats that could come right at you, and you have no way to really defend yourself or escape from that situation quickly and easily. So keep on your feet. Like we said, protect yourself against someone's mouth getting too close. As we've seen other videos of real bite attacks, this tends to be when people get into a desperate situation, their hands are both intertwined and they can't seem to make any move, and they just reach out and bite. And it's, the zombie technique. It's not the good way to fight. It's the absolute last worst case scenario resort. Like Dane said, if I can't survive today, then what's it matter if I get a terrible disease? So, I gotta get through today.
Biting as a tactic to use.
Yeah, it's a terrible idea. Don't do it.
To avoid. So,
yeah,
that's the relevance of biting in a self-defense situation. And if you're considering, as I said, in a grappling wrestling situation, if you're considering that your opponent might bite you, you'll do things differently. You'll modify your approach. And also in even with boxing, it's the same kind of situation, because in boxing you have gloves and you're aiming for the head a lot of the times, but it's actually, if you don't have gloves on, you punch somebody in the mouth and cut your hand on their teeth, which is a very common injury. Doctors refer to it as fight bite, or the phenomenon of a cut knuckle. That's functionally equivalent to them biting you. So if you are taking this into account, then you'll modify your technique. You won't punch somebody in the mouth. You'll find a better target. And this actually, my Sifu told me a story about what happened to him one time when a guy tried to mug him one night, and he was going to his car, and he just socked a dude. He went down. And he went on to his car, but he noticed his hand was hurting. And he turned the light on. He actually had the guy's tooth stuck in the back of his knuckle. So if you're taking into account the possibility of biting either directly or indirectly, inadvertent fluid exchange, then you'll choose your targets appropriately, and you'll also avoid putting yourself in a situation where somebody would have the ability to bite you. It's for the whole point of self-defense is personal safety. And if you end up inadvertently exchanging bodily fluids with a hostile stranger in public, that's a potentially very serious medical situation that should be treated as such. I mean, your doctor
first aid right away.
You get tetanus shots and get it treated right away, because it could potentially be very serious.
Yeah, first aid, wash the wound, disinfect as soon as possible, bandage, and then go get a doctor's appointment and make sure that you're okay. Dane, how would you incorporate biting as a warning in practice? What would you recommend people do?
Well, I'm guessing what you mean by warning is kind of keeping. Yeah,
if I'm in a dangerous position and I want you as my training partner to notify me that I am at risk of something very dangerous that is very hazardous, but it's also something we dare not do to each other because we're trying to help each other.
Yeah, you want to keep the awareness present for you and your partner of the potential of biting. So, what I'll do is, if in training, if somebody puts their hands on my face, they get their fingers close to my mouth, I'll just click my teeth and to let them know that they're getting close Or the same kind of thing if someone if someone like gets your head close to their body, you can remind them and don't necessarily bite them, but just remind them that, let them know that that's there. And like, I said, you have to do it in training. It doesn't mean we train to bite each other. It just means that we keep each other aware of that possibility, so that we don't inadvertently put ourselves in that situation, and we are conscious with our choice of placement and targeting.
Very, very true. And well, is there anything else you wanted to share with the audience tonight?
The big it's really summed up in three sayings. Number one, don't bite. It isn't safe. Number two, if you have to bite something, bite it off, because nothing short of that will work. But number three, mainly, biting is a hazard, not a tactic. Just because you wouldn't do it doesn't mean somebody else wouldn't do it. So you should not rely on biting for your own self-defense, but you also shouldn't rely on the fact that somebody else isn't going to do it. And train accordingly.
Yeah, good idea. Train with the worst case in mind. I think that's the best way to put it when we're talking self-defense. You're already tired. Your adrenaline dumped. What do you do? It's a really tough situation to put ourselves in, and just think of how desperate you'd have to be to think, oh, biting, this is a great idea. I'm going to do this now. So it's a bad place to be, and you want to watch out for anyone who may do that to you. So thank everyone for coming tonight and watching us. Thank you very much, Dane, for educating us a bit. And if you want to see more, please subscribe, smash the like button. Come back anytime. We're here all the time.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. And thanks everybody for watching. If you want to see more good content like this, just stay in touch and we'll be sending it your way.
All right. Thanks very much, everyone. Live long and prosper.
Have a good evening. Bye.